So, when people talk about the Northern Ireland Legacy Agreement, what they're really talking about is this long, complicated struggle, one that's still going on, between the Irish and British governments to finally deal with everything left behind by the Troubles. You know, that period of conflict that started in the late 1960s and didn't really end until the Good Friday Agreement in 1998? It left deep scars, on the land, on the people, on the very fabric of Northern Ireland. The Troubles weren't just some distant political dispute. They were raw, violent, and personal. Mainly Protestant unionists wanted Northern Ireland to stay part of the UK. Mainly Catholic nationalists dreamed of a united Ireland. And for more than 30 years, those dreams clashed, sometimes in the streets, sometimes in people's homes. More than 3,500 lives lost. Tens of thousands injured. Families shattered. Communities divided. And even now, decades later, there are still so many wounds that haven't healed, so many questions that haven't been answered. That's what the Legacy Agreement is about. It's about trying to face all that pain and division, to find some way forward. It's about truth, justice, and the hope that, maybe, the past doesn't have to define the future. But it's not easy. Not by a long shot. So, here's the thing, the Good Friday Agreement, as historic and hopeful as it was, didn't magically fix everything. Sure, it brought an end to the large-scale violence. It set up a new way for people to share power, to try and build a peaceful future together. But the shadows of the past, they didn't just disappear. One of the toughest, most sensitive challenges left behind is what people call the legacy issues. And honestly, these are huge. We're talking about hundreds of unsolved murders and serious crimes from the Troubles, cases that were never closed, questions that were never answered. Families are still waiting, still hoping for the truth. There's this deep need for independent investigations, for inquests that can finally shine a light on what really happened. And it's not just about facts and files, it's about justice, about reconciliation, about giving victims and their families some kind of peace. For so many people, the pain of the past isn't just something in the history books. It's right there, every day, a missing father, a lost sister, a story that never got its ending. The search for answers, for truth, for some kind of closure, is still going on. And that's what makes these legacy issues so urgent, and so hard to solve. So, how do you actually deal with these legacy issues? That question has sparked years of tension, debate, and, honestly, a lot of heartache. Recently, the UK government tried to answer it with something called the Northern Ireland Troubles, Legacy and Reconciliation Act. Most people just call it the Legacy Act. The idea behind this law? To finally draw a line under the past. Instead of focusing on criminal investigations and prosecutions for Troubles-related incidents, the Act shifts the emphasis to information recovery and reconciliation. Basically, it says, let's stop chasing prosecutions and start trying to uncover the truth, to help families find answers. To do this, the Act set up the Independent Commission for Reconciliation and Information Recovery, ICRI for short. Their job is to review old cases and provide information to families who've been waiting, sometimes for decades, to know what really happened. But here's the thing, the Legacy Act didn't land softly. It became a lightning rod for criticism almost immediately. Victims groups, human rights organizations, even the Irish government, they all raised serious concerns. People worry that by limiting prosecutions, the Act could actually deny justice to victims and their families. There are fears it might not meet international human rights standards. And maybe most importantly, a lot of those most affected by the conflict, the people who lived through it, who lost loved ones, don't feel heard or supported by this new approach. So, instead of bringing closure, the Legacy Act has stirred up even more debate about how to balance truth, justice, and reconciliation in a place where the past is still very much alive. So, with all these worries swirling around the Legacy Act, both the Irish and British governments have gone back to the table. They're negotiating, trying to hammer out something better, something that actually works for the people who need it most. The goal? To reach a real legacy agreement. Not just a quick fix, but a joint framework that's legally solid, puts victims at the centre, and can actually win support from all sides in Northern Ireland. These talks are digging into the tough stuff. They're making sure that whatever new system comes out of this will meet the standards set by the European Convention on Human Rights, especially the right to a proper, effective investigation when someone dies. That's huge. And there's a real push to make sure victims and their families aren't just an afterthought, but the heart of the whole process. Their voices, their needs, their search for truth and justice, those are front and center. But it's a delicate balance, isn't it? On one hand, there's the need for truth, for information, for families to finally get answers. On the other, there's the possibility of prosecutions, because if there's evidence, justice still matters. And through it all, there's this hope that whatever comes next can help people heal, can bring some measure of reconciliation, without tearing open old wounds all over again. It's not easy, but that's the challenge they're facing, finding a way to honor the past, serve justice, and help Northern Ireland move forward. So, a big moment happened in April 2025. Taoiseach Simon Harris and Northern Ireland Secretary Hilary Benn sat down together at the British-Irish Intergovernmental Conference, right there at Hillsborough Castle. And get this, it was the first time this conference had been held in Northern Ireland since 2006. That alone shows just how important, how urgent, this moment really is. Both governments came out of those talks calling them constructive. They said, look, we're working in good faith, we're serious about reaching an agreement. Harris didn't mince words, he said the process is at a critical juncture. In just a few weeks, we'll know if a joint position is possible. And he made it clear why this matters so much. Time is running out. So many victims and families are getting older, still waiting, still not knowing the truth about what happened to the people they loved. The heart of these discussions? Two big tests. First, will any new legacy mechanism actually comply with the European Convention on Human Rights? That's non-negotiable. Second, will it have the support of victims and their families? Because if it doesn't, it won't work, plain and simple. Both Harris and Benn admitted just how complex and sensitive all of this is. But they also stressed how vital it is to get this right, to find a solution that finally delivers answers, that helps build trust and confidence in the peace process. Because at the end of the day, that's what's at stake: truth, justice, and the future of peace in Northern Ireland. The importance of reaching a real legacy agreement? Honestly, it can't be overstated. For so many families, the pain of the Troubles isn't just something in the past, it's still with them every single day. They're searching for answers, for accountability, and, if it's possible, for justice for the loved ones they lost. Getting this right, addressing the past in a way that truly respects the rule of law and upholds human rights, isn't just a box to tick. It's essential. It's about the credibility of both governments, and the very foundation of the peace process itself. If people can see that the process is fair, transparent, and honest, it can help communities move closer together. It can start to build real reconciliation, and maybe, just maybe, reduce the risk of old wounds turning into new conflict. And there's another layer here. Both the UK and Ireland are bound by international human rights law. That means they're required to make sure deaths and serious crimes are properly investigated. No shortcuts, no cover-ups. So, any legacy agreement that comes out of these talks has to meet those standards. It's not just a moral responsibility, it's a legal one. And for the families, for the future of peace, it's absolutely vital. Even with all the progress in these talks, the road ahead is still full of obstacles. There are deep, real divisions over how to balance truth, justice, and reconciliation. Some victims' groups are clear. They want full criminal investigations, prosecutions, real accountability for what happened. Others, though, are more focused on information recovery, on finally getting answers and acknowledgement, even if that means prosecutions aren't always possible. And then there's the political landscape, always sensitive, always complicated. Unionist and nationalist communities often see the past through very different lenses, and what feels like justice or closure to one side can feel like a loss or a threat to the other. The whole controversy around the UK's Legacy Act really shows just how tough it is to find a solution that everyone can live with. The Act has faced strong criticism, not just from the Irish government, but from victims' groups and international human rights organisations too. They've all questioned whether it actually meets human rights standards, and they've pointed out that it just doesn't have the support of the people most affected by the Troubles. So, while there's hope and momentum, there's also a real sense of just how hard it is to get this right. The challenge is to find a way forward that honors the needs and voices of all those who still, despite all the challenges, these current negotiations feel like a real, renewed push to finally find some common ground. Both the Irish and British governments are making it clear they're committed to working together, and they know that a joint approach is the only way to build real trust and get something that actually works for everyone. This legacy agreement isn't just about ticking off legal boxes or settling political arguments. It's about so much more. It's about facing the unfinished business of the Troubles, honoring the pain and suffering of victims, and laying down a foundation for true, lasting peace and reconciliation in Northern Ireland. That's what's really at stake here. As these talks continue, there's hope, real hope, that an agreement can be reached. One that delivers truth, justice, and healing for everyone touched by the conflict. The next few weeks are going to be critical. This is the moment to see if, after all these years, this long-standing issue can finally be resolved in a way that truly meets the needs of victims and stands up for human rights and the rule of law. It's a chance to close a painful chapter, and to do it with honesty, compassion, and courage.
Step into the past and uncover the heart of Ireland. At Emerald Chronicle, we bring you hundreds of captivating documentaries exploring Irish history, myths, legends, and folklore. Our playlists guide you through Ireland's fascinating journey, from prehistoric Ireland, proto-historic and Celtic eras, and the early Christian and Viking periods, to the Anglo-Irish invasion and the lordship of Ireland.
Delve deeper into the Tudor conquest and religious conflicts, the union with Great Britain and the Great Famine, the fight for independence and the divisions of the 20th century, and Ireland's evolution into the 21st century. Best of all, we keep all our documentaries at 15 minutes or less, making it easy to explore Ireland's history, even on a busy day.
Every time you watch, you're supporting the upkeep of our channel. And when you share Emerald Chronicle, you're helping to promote Irish history and culture worldwide. We kindly ask you to like and share, and subscribe to Emerald Chronicle now. Let's keep Ireland's stories alive together.